for you. It is a coffee and learn format. So we're deviating a little bit from the normal PEOF session format in that this one's a little bit shorter, a little bit more informal, informational, really to just get things going, because actually a lot of the co-creation work you've already done. This is our 6th PEOF session on digital health and patient engagement. You've provided a lot of input, and we're going to provide you another opportunity to continue that input through an ongoing open consultation. So whether you are early morning in the Americas, post-lunch in Europe or Africa, or it's late in the evening in Asia and the East, please grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for this session. As all PEOF sessions, it's very informal. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat, or provide your input, your insight. Tell us what else you'd like to see. So if you can go to the next slide, I see that Matt here has already added and shared the Worldly translation tool. So we are using artificial intelligence today to do live translation. If English is not your first language, or if you just like to have another reference guide, you can go through and open the Worldly translation tool, and it will pop up in another screen and give you kind of a real-time translation in well over 50 languages. Before we jump into things, how is everyone doing? How is your November going so far? Feel free to put a number in the chat, or to our speakers or anyone brave, shout it out. I'm feeling a little bit like a 4. Yeah, Rasmus, I'm with you. We've got a lot of 4s. Also, my husband tells me that I look like a quokka just in regular everyday life. So I don't know why. I must have this like crazed smile all the time. I'm seeing some 5s, a lot of 5s. That's good. I feel like 5 is good. You're here, you're strapped in, you're ready for the ride. Oh, we've got a 10. Jesus, you have to explain what is your 10? But this is great. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of happy people, a lot of people in for the ride. I'm not seeing any 3. Oh, there's 1 3, Julie. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's honest. All right. So let's move forward with this. Just a quick intervention to get us going, get us started, and to set the tone for this hour that we have together. So today, we are going to discuss designing digital health solutions with patients. Together with a multi-stakeholder group, we created a guidance and a roadmap around how to engage with patients in digital health. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about this roadmap. We're going to share with you some of the preliminary results for the public consultation. So if you're a part of the broader PEOF mailing list, then you would have received an email a few months ago inviting your collaboration on the public consultation. And today we would like to go ahead and share with you some of those first results that we've gotten. And really the goal today is to talk about the results that we've received so far, invite your questions, comments, what else you would like to see, and ask for your help in further developing it and really turning it into a guidance and framework that is what the community wants. So joining us today, I'm very honored to introduce, well, I will ask them to introduce ourselves, a couple of our speakers. And these speakers actually have gone through the roadmap. They have done the public consultation. They submitted their answers, and the feedback was just really great, really constructive, really helpful. So we have invited them here today because we really want to have them share their experience and their views more broadly, and then also open up that feedback channels and welcome and encourage this type of feedback to us. Before I turn it over to Ivica, I will introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Priest. I am a program director with PFMD and the Synergist. and I work on the PFMD Patient Engagement and Digital Health Initiative. Alongside my colleague here, who's not on the screen, but we have here Aurora Lanja, who is helping behind the scenes, sharing screens, etc., keeping us on target. Aurora, feel free to jump in if there's anything that you feel like we should know as we go through this session. So starting with Ivica, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
So hello everyone, I'm Ivica Belina, I come from Croatia. I'm running the National Umbrella Patient Organization here. I'm also active primarily in a cancer, let's say, society. And I'm part of the F3 Alliance for Precision Medicine. So yes, I contributed to this discussion and we'll see how it goes from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivica. Rasmus, over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, my name is Rasmus Hjort. I'm located in Copenhagen, Denmark, as you might guess from my very Danish name. I'm the head of communication in James Link Care, and I have 8 years of experience working with engaging patients and recruiting patients in clinical research and for clinical trials. And my educational background is a master's in digital communication, so I feel like I can add those to like my work experience and my educational experience here as well. Yeah, and I've worked with PFMD in several projects, so I'm looking forward to attend this event as well.
Thank you, Rasmus. Una.
Hi, I'm Una Renard. I'm a caregiver for my adult autistic son. I'm also a patient. I'm based in Oxfordshire in the UK, as well as being involved in patient and carer engagement or involvement, as we call it here in the UK, for about 20 years. I also now work in the field as well, and I've also got about 30 years of experience of working with communities.
Thank you so much, Una. So we are going to walk through a little bit of the digital roadmap. I will encourage any of today's speakers to interrupt me at any moment if they have anything that they would like to share. And we'll go a little bit through the digital roadmap with the results, and then open it up for some open discussion, questions and answers, etc. But before we get into that, you've heard from us. Now let's hear from you. If you could click the link in the chat or use your phone to scan the QR code, we have 2 questions for you today. 1, how would you describe your level of expertise in digital health? And then 2, what does digital health mean to you in 1 word? So we'll leave this up for a little bit longer, and then we can transition over to the results. It looks like we have some nice diversity within the different expertise levels. A lot of intermediate, advanced, and beginner as well. So nice to see that we're covering all of the bases. I'm surprised to see so many advanced. That's great. Una, Rasmus, Ivica, anything surprising here to you guys?
I'm glad that people know so much about digitalization, digital health. I think that just calls for a really good session and discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that people are here today because they're interested and they following what's going on in this field.
Can I ask, if you answered intermediate or advanced, can I ask you to put in the chat what your focus is within digital health? Because I think, Una, you made a really good point on Monday when we were chatting that digital health is extremely broad. And we'll get a little bit more into that here in a second, but it would be great if people do have an advanced knowledge or even an intermediate knowledge to kind of put in what your focus area is within digital that you work in.
I was just going to say, Elizabeth, that it's quite scary as somebody who's not involved in digital health beyond using the apps that people produce, that there are so many knowledgeable people here. So
Not at all. I think that's one of the big things that we want to talk about today, you know, how to involve parts of the patient community without needing a super, super high level of digital expertise in that. So I think we're on target there. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Una.
Exactly, and I agree. And I can see it's getting more diverse now. So that's also great that we have different points of views. Because I think actually what we will also talk about is that a lot of the patients that will meet solutions for digital health, they are more in the beginner level. So we also need to really address that area of being in the beginner level of digital health.
Yeah, we're only scratching the surface right now, right? Aurora, did anyone put expert out of curiosity? Is that all the way? No, okay. So no experts. Well, there we go. Oh no, 6%. Sorry, I didn't see that. 6% experts. That's amazing. So leading digital health projects or strategies. So definitely hope that those who have identified yourselves as experts, that you can pitch in and add in the chat or with questions how we can continue to evolve this work together. Aurora, if you can go ahead and put on the next question, what does digital health mean to you in one word? And while everybody's filling this out, I might, if Ivica, Rasmus, or you have any strong desires to answer this question, feel free to jump in.
yeah, I will. I think I don't know what it means. And I think there's probably a lot of us as patients, carers, whatever we are out there, who don't really understand what we mean by digital health. It's one of these things, we like shorthand for things. And it's one of these things that I like accessibility there, because hopefully that's, I'm here because I think there are huge potential benefits from digital health. But I want it to be usable and to make things accessible rather than be an obstacle, which it very often is, particularly as you get older, or if you maybe have issues with being able to access complicated things, what appear complicated to you.
Thanks, Una. Yeah, I think that's a great point and something that we're going to elaborate more on as we talk about the roadmap. And I know that we're talking about digital today, but not everyone is connected through a computer or has all of the access to Slido, etc. So feel free, as I've seen, I don't know your name, but this BGD2 has given the answers in the chat. That's great. Please, if you do not have access, if you don't know how to get onto the Slido, feel free to always use the chat to ask your questions, to put everything and your answers. The chat is always a great place to provide your inputs.
I just want to add really great answers. I mean, I definitely agree with accessibility, innovation, easy access. So as always, the audience is much wiser than the one speaking, right? But no, I think there's a lot of great answers here. But accessibility, that's an interesting word as well, right? Because what we will also talk about is, does it also make it more difficult for some group of patients to participate?
I think it's important for us to see the words with fewer people saying them, the ones like bamboozling, mystifying, and where somebody said something about the inevitable future, which all imply potential negative issues around digital. And it's about how we bring in what we might see those as marginalized communities for whatever reason that is, and understanding how we get all of this to be accessible for a wider group of people. Sorry, I will bang on about inclusivity quite a lot.
Yeah, so I saw this word dehumanization. I think that we need to understand that digitalization of health doesn't mean that the machines will replace the contact that you have with your doctor, and nothing can replace that. But we have to understand that this is the way to get some broader groups of data that even you can benefit from, or if you want, someone in your condition will.
And one of the things that I think is nice to point out, as all of you have done already, is we've done a lot of these word clouds throughout various PEOF events, and I would have to say that a lot of the ones that I've seen, you see more repetition than we're seeing right now. There's a lot of different answers, which in itself is very interesting.
Yeah, I think that this is the problem, because I think when you say digital health, it means so many things to so many people, and still there is no like established terminology that we all would know what we're talking about, and there is not a common understanding of this because we're not coming from the same backgrounds, we don't come from the same conditions, and we cannot see this story as one unified story. So we were talking about this the other day, and yes, I will repeat what I said that day. The point of this conversation is that I don't believe that we as patients necessarily have to lead this story, but we have to be included in all the conversation about it, and we need to be at the table, not on the table. And I think that all the participants today should think about it this way, about this conversation, at least.
Thanks, Ivica. I think that's a great point. Yeah, you mentioned to be at the table, not on the table. And that is quite the distinction. So I want us to think about these points that we've brought up now, the concepts that we've mentioned so far, as well as if you filled this out, please think about the positives that you mentioned, as Miriam is saying. Let's think about the potential negatives as well. And let's take that into the discussion that we're going to have, and how we can apply that to potentially the roadmap, or how we address some of these issues. So I'm going to start off a little bit about PFMD. So if you're new to PFMD, it stands for Patient-Focused Medicines Development, but we are a multi-stakeholder nonprofit organization that really focuses on supporting meaningful engagement of patients and meaningful patient engagement as early as possible to support better health outcomes. A few years ago, we started focusing a little bit more on digital health, given the importance of digital, the digital transformation that we're all undergoing, and just the capability that digital has to empower the patient community and all stakeholders and really enhance healthcare and improve outcomes. So we're going to be focusing today on the PE digital roadmap, this little box on the right, but it is, of course, part of a broader initiative where we are looking to support and advance patient engagement in digital health. As I mentioned, this is our 6th PEOF session on the topic. So actually, a lot of what we used as a starting point for the patient engagement digital health roadmap came from previous PEOF session, and was then kind of worked together through multi-stakeholder collaborators to build the roadmap that you're going to see today. And the need for that has come out of previous work done, such as our stakeholder expectations matrix interviews, where really there was a call for a unified approach and framework guiding us on how to implement meaningful patient engagement. Because even when we know that doing patient engagement is important, there is definitely a gap as far as how to do it and how to make it meaningful. So let's jump into the roadmap itself. The patient engagement roadmap in digital health is really a step-by-step framework that is meant to support why we should do PE, the value behind it, and the role of the patient community, when we should do it, so highlighting those crucial moments so that it's not just, oh, I talked to my grandmother about the color of the app. And then how, so guiding on best PE practices throughout the process. And for the purpose of this conversation, we are keeping the scope of the term digital health quite broad. And that is because the digital health roadmap itself is quite versatile in that who can benefit for the digital roadmap? Anyone involved in creating any kind of digital solution or tool. So a platform for the patient community to use. That can even be all the way to digital therapeutics or digital medicine that requires some kind of clinical evidence, as well as investors or companies looking to purchase or implement a digital solution. So if you represent a role within a pharmaceutical company, for example, you want to bring on a new artificial intelligence tool to look at real world data, please take a look at the roadmap. We hope that it can empower a conversation of where did you involve patients? Did you involve them here? Was the patient community brought in at this point, et cetera. And then, of course, for patient organizations and patient advocates and the broader patient community to really better understand how your engagement can shape and better create these digital health solutions for adherence, adoption, usability, et cetera. So if you go to the next slide, the digital roadmap is set up into two phases, the problem phase and the solution phase. Actually, originally, it was just one phase. And after talking to a lot of the collaborators, we really decided there was a need to separate the problem phase. There was a need to have two different ones. And this kind of comes out of the design thinking methodology. There is a need to really determine an unmet need before you start trying to guess how to address it. And so what we've done now is try to separate the roadmap. And you'll see both phases really depend on this iterative approach, adding value with each step and being able to go through the process as many times as you would need. In phase one, the problem phase, this is all about understanding, empathizing, discovering, determine what the unmet need is. And we really want to stress that this is the time to do this with the patient community, as well as the key stakeholders that are important to what you're creating. So you can continue the cycle until the unmet need is clear and validated with patients, but it should gather insight and understanding, define pain points, and then validate those all with patients. And then only once this has been validated, you can move forward towards the solution phase. The solution phase might look a little familiar because the basic framework that we've used here is the lean startup methodology. It is a methodology that is very commonly used to develop a digital tool, digital development, or startup. We've done this because we wanted to really show the various steps, and all of the contributors felt like it was important that we speak a language that all stakeholders can understand and grasp, and putting it in the cycle of a digital development would be the best way because it's also circular now. Everything that we're doing is around ideating, building, measuring, learning, and starting again. And being able to use a proven tool such as the Lean Startup methodology, bringing in other proven patient engagement resources like the patient engagement quality guidance, is a way that we can kind of meld together and speak both languages. Now, every single step you see here in the roadmap has a one-page breakout where we go into detail around what that step means, the value of patient engagement in that step, what happens, the risk if there's no patient engagement, roles the patient community can play, and then best practices and what to do to engage. So Aurora has just shared the full guidance document in the chat. This is the basic PDF. There is also the open consultation survey to go along with this, but really we wanted to share this now. So as we're going through this together, please feel free to let us know. It's not too late. We're doing the work now. So now is your opportunity to have us and the working group do the work for you. Let us know what else you would like to see here. Let us know what you feel like is missing, what you would add in, how to make it super usable. You can even comment on the format, etc., because nothing says digital like a 10-page PDF. We know that. So how we put it forward is going to be very important. Or of course, if you're very motivated, let us know and join the collaborators on the project to help move it forward. So now I'm going to share a little bit of the preliminary results. So far, we have received about 79, so almost 80 responses to the public consultation. Over 70% of that comes from patient advocates, patient organizations, and caregivers. This is amazing for us. It's really nice to see a high representation of the patient community taking interest in this. That means it's important, and it's important to the patient community. We're seeing about a 47% advanced patient engagement expertise, so people that have good patient engagement expertise. And then, of course, right now, at least, the results have been mainly focused on Europe. What we've heard so far is that people really perceive that the roadmap can help enhance the quality of patient engagement, educate others on its importance, identify where one's expertise fits in digital health development. And then what we've heard as far as format is concerned, that to complement or advance it, maybe something like video tutorials and webinars, interactive online tools with step-by-step guidances, mobile-friendly versions, etc., would be helpful. I think there's one more slide on the key findings, and then I'm going to pause here. So the two big themes that have come out of the public consultation so far are around understanding and applicability. The value of patient engagement and the role of the community, people told us that they understand that fairly well. While there have been some positive feedback around the steps like product, measure, and data on the guidance and usefulness, we've definitely received, for example, a little bit more feedback around the data step. So we've heard that the data step is really important. Maybe we need to elaborate even more a little bit to make sure the importance and how strongly the community feels around the use and management of data is accurately reflected within the roadmap. So that's some really great constructive feedback that we're getting. And then most of the respondents are likely to incorporate the guidance into their personal and professional activities. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see Una, Rasmus, Evita, anything that you would like to comment on, anything surprising or anything you'd like to emphasize?
So I can start out. That would mainly be if you go one slide back, or the phase 2, the solution. From my experience, what is very important is that when you learn, you present the correct data towards the ones who decide. Especially if you work in pharma, it's really important that you gather the right data and present it the correct way to persuade to do more patient engagement. In this relation, it would be digital. But for instance, collect ROI data. How does it benefit the business? How does it streamline a process? I'm more focused on patient engagement, but that doesn't go all the way to persuade to do a new process. So I think in order to, really implement this in, for instance, pharma, you need to be focused on who do you need to convince and how do you need to convince these people. And some of the work you need to do is collecting the business rationale to persuade and convince a business to do differently, and that would be patient engagement activities. From what we also talked about, I think when you learn in this process, it's very important that you collect perspectives from other stakeholders than the patients. Often you tend to, as you also say in the phase 1, find the unmet need for patients, and I think that's a great approach. But often what fails often why a solution fails to be implemented is maybe because the solution doesn't fit another stakeholder within that ecosystem or surrounding. So for instance, in clinical research, you might develop a lot of patient-centric technology and develop it in the design of the clinical trial. But if it doesn't fit with clinical research sites' needs, and they are not able to navigate in a new system or with new devices, it will probably not be used. So even though you have defined and identified a clear unmet patient need, you really need to be aware about other stakeholders within that ecosystem you are working in when doing digital solutions.
I would definitely echo what Rasmus said in this part, but I would also like to say that sometimes in clinical trials, although there's lots of stressing how important are the patients and how important is patient data and every single one, individual one patient and their data, in the design of clinical trials, they're trying to avoid to talk to that patient. So they try to talk to your doctor, but they won't ask you directly. So this is the part where we need to take a stand, and we want to be talked to. If I am a participant in a clinical trial, I would like to have my data taken from me, so not from my doctor. And I think that's a fair trade.
I think you present a nice piece, Ivica, because you know, a lot of what we've heard in some of the interviews that we've done is that user-centered design or basic design thinking, you know, can tick the boxes. And what we're saying is that it's patient engagement, and meaningful patient engagement is a step farther than that. You know, it's not with just talking to an expert about you, it's talking to you. Because this is our health, and it's one of the most important assets that we have. You know, we need to make sure that we're going and doing what we can to support that adherence, that adoption, et cetera, so that we're working towards a solution that people actually use. I mean, that's what we saw a lot of in building up to this, is that people recognize the importance for engaging with patients, and everybody, you know, who creates a tool does user-centered design, but we're not doing patient engagement. And as a result, a lot of the adoption of the digital tools that are being produced are not being used to the extent that they should be.
Just wanted to pick up a couple of things, Elizabeth, particularly from the chat. People are making some really helpful and important comments, particularly around consent, that we need to make sure that's in there, not assuming consent. And this issue about one size, somebody said in the chat somewhere, one size does not fit all. And I think that's absolutely right. And then somebody else has followed on and talked about if there's a digital solution, there also needs to be an alternative, because not everybody can access it. So I think it's about not seeing digital health always as the new shiny bright thing, but as an addition to how you make existing services and activities and what have you good for people. And I think one of the other things I just wanted to say was that, and I think it applies to what Rasmus was saying about sort of applied health professionals and people like that, people who are delivering services, that getting involved in digital health stuff is difficult to do when you don't think it's about you or for you, because you don't understand it. And so there has to be, there's a confidence issue about people putting their hand up to be involved. When I was invited to come and talk to this, I thought, oh, well, I don't know that I can do that because I don't know anything about digital health. Why ask me? And it's really important to recognise that you often, and it happens in engagement generally, I think, that people get involved because they're really interested, really know about it, but that isn't your end user. That's not your average end user. Your average end user is somebody who can open their phone and maybe download the app and then looks at it and don't understand what's happening. And And then the other side of that is my son's autistic. He's highly intellectual, very good digitally, but doesn't trust sharing his data with people. So won't let me set him up on NHS Digital here in the UK because he doesn't trust what's going to happen with his data, which takes us full circle back to what I said first about consent and building trust in populations, I think.
Yeah, so Una, all of what you just said, I agree with, except the fact that you are not an expert in this. I mean, all of your points are so great and valid. Yeah, for me, there are so many things I would like to say about this, but we need to remember that the foundation of all we do in drug development lies on the fact that patients are willing to share their data with the industry, their health data, right? And we shouldn't take that for granted at any point. So every time we do make a solution, we need to be aware about the patient need and start there, because without them giving us the possible access to their health data, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And I actually presented at another conference last week where I said this, let's remember it's the foundation and appreciate that when we work to develop digital solutions. And I think actually the first task you gave us about writing a word around this digital health, and I was a bit like enabling, disabling, and I think that should be some kind of paradox we look through this lens when we talk about it, because digitalization definitely enables a lot of people, but what we've already heard from the comments and some of the speakers here, it's also disabling for some other people. And like also what I said in my company, we are working with digital services for patients, but whenever we come up with a new innovation digitally, we should also test out an analog service and try to measure those up. What do we gain? What do we lose?
Thank you, Rasmus. I'm seeing a lot of really great pieces in the chat. Avita, I see you just came off mute. Did you want to add something? Sorry.
No, that's okay, but I just wanted to say that one of the solutions is actually your PDF, so you can use it digitally, or you can print it for someone, so it's not so bad.
Thank you. That's a nice point. No, but I'm seeing some really nice things coming through in the chat. And I think Stephen has made a good point here too around the right people and the right partners at the right time. And I think that what we're trying to do, and I'd be really interested to hear more about how potentially the roadmap can address some of these issues that we're talking, what else we would need to add in to do that. But within the first phase and within the ideas phase, if you go into the PDF, what we've tried to do is say, to leave it up to the patient community. So a lot of these are guidelines, but everything is going to have a different application around, is it condition specific? What type of digital solution is it, et cetera? And creating space for the patient community to say, this is when I feel like we need to be involved from the onset. So maybe, it doesn't, maybe there's a great need, maybe there's a less of a need, maybe there's a certain expertise required, et cetera. And all of that can be discussed. It's just carving the space and the time to make sure that that's a conversation you're having from the very beginning.
I just wanted to pick up, Elizabeth, on something that I think it's David Gilbert said in the chat about we've already got a lot of guides and there's probably going to be a lot more. Do we need this? Not specifically that, but it was a point I had that was a sort of around, we already know what makes good engagement. And there's something about building on what we do know, which I'm sure you have done, and so you go to these things as a patient or carer sometimes, and I've seen it in various things where it's like people want to redesign the whole thing, And actually what you're doing is trying to implement what you already know about how to engage well into a new setting. And so you don't always have to go back to the drawing board. It's about how you build on what you have. And so I think it's just a really important point to ground us in, we know a lot. And, you know, there's a plethora of things out there already. And sometimes people can't see what they need because there's so much, and it's quite confusing, particularly when you work in this space around the language and that. So we talk about barriers to patient involvement, but we also need to talk about barriers to researchers, academics, professionals, whoever they are, and how they get involved in things. I don't know if we've lost Elizabeth, Aurora. I can't see her.
Hi, Una. Sorry about that.
There
No,
she
speaking of digital working miracles, sorry about that. I got kicked out for a moment, but I am back. I wanted to maybe, and that's a great point. You know, I heard what you said in the beginning, and drawing on what David said around there are a million guidances, right? How do we really support this and move it forward? If, you know, but what we saw is there are a million guidances out there, especially talking about digital health. But in doing the landscape review that we did, we didn't see anything that was really a step-by-step framework that put patients at the center. We still try to, you know, and that was one of the things that we heard from the working group as well, that we should pull on things that exist. So I would also, please, if there are resources that you're using, if there are resources that you like, if there are ones that you are creating in your day-to-day job that you feel like are helpful, please share those. We are definitely open to incorporating anything and pointing to other resources that are doing a great job. I know that when it comes to digital terminology and things like that, there are some resources, even in the US, from like the Digital Medicine Society, et cetera, that are really, really great. So I think that one of the things that we want to do is try to incorporate the best practices and the other resources that are out there, so that in a way it's kind of a one-stop shop and you really can be directed to things that might be helpful.
Can I
But
quickly
I also, yeah, go.
because I think actually also what we maybe miss in this discussion is that, you know, you don't have to go full digital always. You can also use hybrid design. You can, well, what I would always advise, especially when you're dealing with digitalization and patients, is to have a option where they can contact a human being, a human-to-human connection. So if there's any questions, if there's any problems, they can always get in contact with a professional. So we see that in our process when recruiting patients, that actually one of the most effective ways of doing that in our process is the contact between the nurse and the patient still. I mean, they value that a lot, and they have all of the questions ready for when they are in contact with the nurse. And I think, you know, remembering that we can streamline some processes or some part of the processes, but that doesn't necessarily have to mean that we need to go full digital. Let's remember that it's human-to-human connections that creates the biggest trust between especially patients and the industry, I believe.
Thanks, Rasmus. I think you bring up something nice around digital as a tool, right? At the end of the day, it is a tool that we should use to address the needs that the community has. It's not something that we necessarily want to, you know, shove technology down anyone's throats. It's more about how do we pull this in to support health outcomes, not just technology for technology's sake. But Rasmus, you mentioned something around taking shortcuts and how that impacts quality and effectiveness of patient engagement. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I think one of the, what do you call it? One of the risks we are maybe facing with AI's potential, for instance, and further digitalization is that you can streamline processes even more and make processes more effective. but we are losing the perspective on what are we substituting this solution with. So for instance, if you have ICF, you want to make more patient-friendly, I think one scenario that I wouldn't like, but I think could be quite realistic, would be to prompt AI to make a patient-friendly version of this. Whereas you would substitute that with actually meeting with patients, providing you with input on the ICF, for instance. And what we maybe compare those two different processes one-to-one, but what we tend to forget is that you get a lot of positive side outcomes of meeting patients. You get some insights, you get to actually meet these people, which you don't by doing a prompt for an AI. And also, we're not there yet where AI can deliver the same quality as well. But that's kind of what I would like more people to have what do you call it? Like think more about and be more considerate about what are you substituting a more digitalized process with when you're doing that. Another great example, sorry, but that is, when we digitalize something and make it more effective, we tend to overuse it. So let's just take mail, for instance. Back in the day when we needed to send each other letters and so on, we really carefully considered whether or not this message made sense to send. Now we can send email, that's great. But I think a lot of people attending this session can nod to the fact that they receive a lot of irrelevant email they feel like they need to respond to, and maybe they didn't need to. So when we get new technologies, we also tend to overuse it, and we should also be careful about that.
I would just like to comment on David Gilbert's message in the chat, because I think this is very true, and I think that we should use platform like this as a point of influence for every other stakeholders in healthcare, because they are around PEOF, and especially industry is there. So we need to talk to them about the importance of patient engagement from the onset of the idea for any research and development, because I think this is the only way that it should actually be done. We can do, I don't know what number of papers and what number of roadmaps, but if they don't really seriously understand why is this important, and the fact that people living with the disease are the only ones with the experience, and the carers are also the only ones with the experience of taking care of such a person, we cannot go further.
Thanks, Ivica. Yeah, I think David made a really nice comment in the chat, and I'm gonna butcher this, but Alice as well. Thank you both for your input on this. For one, I think we're trying to look for pilots for this to help implement it and show that value, Ivica, as you mentioned. So seeing if there are some pilot cases that can help us refine what's there, make it usable, and show the value in best practice cases. But a second thing, and I wanted to open this up, is we've also been told that the roadmap could potentially be used as some kind of certification. So I'm thinking back to, the comments that have been made on consent and trust. Would there be interest from the community in having some kind of, this has followed, a patient engagement roadmap stamp of approval to help foster some of that trust? Is there anything out there like that right now that exists? Would this be a potential application of that?
I'd just make a comment on that, Elizabeth. I sometimes have a little bit of an issue around patient engagement when there's sort of, getting a stamp of, yeah, you've done it, because the danger is whether things become tick boxy. So it's easy to say you've done it, but have you done it well? And what does well look like in different situations? So that it's nice for people to be able to see something that says, yeah, this is great, this is good. But that would be my caution around it. So I don't know whether that's a good good solution or not. I think if it's done well, it is, but it's also extremely costly to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's kind of some of the conversation that we've had at a collaborator level too. And so I was just curious to open it up to the broader audience as well.
So can I just quickly ask, when you say it's extremely costly to do, would that be to do proper patient engagement?
Sorry?
Yeah, I was just asking you from what you said just before. So when you say it would be extremely costly to do, are you referring to doing proper engagement activities or?
No, it's how you police it. How, you know, if you're going to give people a stamp to say, yeah, you did this really well, then how do you do that? If you look at something like Investors in People in the UK here as an HR human resources thing, that's not a cheap thing to do, I don't think, to police whether people are really attaining what they're attaining, all those kind of standards-based things, I think.
Yeah, okay, now I get it. Well, I think one of the answers is definitely to develop these roadmaps, standard operating procedures, so it can be a more professionalized area to work with patient engagement in drug development and digitalization of patient engagement, because I think that is what is also lacking. So if you are working with a project, a pilot project, it's nice to refer to a broadly used and accepted methodology, right?
Thank you. Okay, guys, I'm going to transition us because we are actually running out of time and we don't have much left, but I just wanted to thank you all. So I want to thank all of the people that joined this session today who did more than sit back and drink their coffee and added a lot of great input into the chat. Gave us a lot of good things to think about, what's important to the community, what we need to be considering as we pull this forward. That is not taken for granted that you share that with us. And a really big thank you to Una, Rasmus, and Ivica for joining us today. I think we reached out to you because not only was the feedback that you gave us on the consultation really helpful, and very constructive, but it wasn't, you know, all flowers and roses. I think that we need to be realistic around how we pull this forward and what we think about to bring something into fruition that's useful. So a great constructive dialogue today and from you, and that is so grateful for. We are so grateful for your support on that. I'm gonna ask Aurora to pull up the slide where we actually have the open consultation still open. The public consultation will remain open until December. So if you have not shared, we will take all of the feedback here today. So if you've already contributed that and that is enough, thank you. If you'd like to share it within your network, or if you'd like to get even more involved, we do have the public consultation open. It is a survey that goes through each of the steps and allows you to provide some insight on that. So if you've already taken it, we thank you a lot for your support. We just have a few minutes left, so we're going to keep this slide up, and I'm just going to say, Una, Rasmus, Ivica, any final notes that you'd like to close us out on?
Yeah, just quickly say three things really. Something about a golden thread that runs through this, and that's all stakeholders, not just patients and carers. That's really important from the beginning to the end, and implementation, all that sort of thing. Making time and space, and I don't just mean throwing more resources at it, I mean giving time, allowing time for nuance and iteration, and thinking about how to be inclusive and diverse in the people that you involve. And that can often mean layering your engagement in different ways through it, so people can dip in and out, just dip in once, go away, or stay with you for the long haul. And please, please, please don't be extractive about things. Always give feedback.
Thank you, Una.
I would just love to say that this is a great situation where we can actually discuss things without I don't know. I didn't feel like there is some expectations. It's just like putting things out and talk about them. And I think this is a great start to something great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Itzeb.
yeah, and I agree fully with my two panelists, if I can call it that. And I just want to say that I really applaud and welcome the work you're doing with this roadmap, Elizabeth. I think it's very needed, and yeah, we need that. And just make sure every time you work with this that you have the patient input, no matter what your stakeholder role is in drug development.
Thank you, Rasmus. I think that's the perfect place to end, the perfect message to end on. Thank you all so much. We will have the recording and the slides and the link for the public consultation. All of that will go out after the session. I want to say probably next week, but just give us a little bit of time to put it all together, and we will follow it up and email it out to everyone who is part of the Patient Engagement Open Forum consultation. We do have another session coming up tomorrow, so please feel free to join us. It is on the patient movement catalysts and how to ensure social participation in health. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, or evening or morning, and hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.